And we're live, everybody.
Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show, where we help top leaders find their pathway to incredible success and a lifetime of happiness. Here is your host, Tom Dutta, the Quiet Warrior.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. Tom Dutta, like Butta. Y'all know me by now, and you know that I do storytelling and I have a lot of fun on this show. But I can tell you that today's guest is extraordinary, and not only in my life, usually I don't meet a lot of guests before, but I know a lot about this lady. And as I'll just say that I became knowing to her story as what I call the trickle down effect. A little bit here, a little bit there, and then all of a sudden it just popped, and it was like, oh my goodness, I've got to produce her story and help her take it to the world. Let me tell you a little bit about Pauline Blachford, everybody. I've gone to her website. You'll see it in the stock ticker. And I'm just pulling off a few things that I saw there. First of all, she is a consultant and she works consulting in the optometry industry. She helps business managers build their practice and nurturing and growing their patient database. That's pretty amazing. And I have my own story with my vision challenges after concussion. So that hits me. Also, you go a little bit further here. Outside of work, she supports several cases she's deeply cares about, including Optometry Giving Site, Third World Eye Care Society, Canadian Blood Services. She's also served on the founding board of the Guyanese Canadian Cultural Association of BC. And I met her through Toastmasters International. I won't do the commercial for Toastmasters, but it's a 98-year-old brand. It's an education company that has a really cool membership-based model where you have your private group, you have an online university, you learn, you go and you present speeches and you get real-time feedback. It's awesome. And I just love it. And I was in a role there where I met Pauline, who was the president of the White Rock, British Columbia Toastmasters Club. And that's really the first time I started hearing a bit about her story. And I got to be honest, before I bring her on the screen, she was just so professional and nice. And I didn't really know the depth of her story until maybe a couple of months or so after. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring her on the screen right now to say hello to you. Pauline, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show.
Good morning, Tom. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to share my story.
I'm so excited to have you here. And what you're going to see sometimes, we're going to change up the view here on the screen. So I just want to get everybody comfortable with that. Folks, first of all, live streaming is across LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter this morning. And for those of you who are on the live stream, please chat with us in the chat box. You can make comments, ask questions. I can feature it on the screen. And it will help us grow the following for this show and Pauline's episode by hitting the subscribe button on YouTube, hit the bell so that you'll get notified when we release the final. So, Pauline, it's awesome. So let's go back and just start where just riffing and telling stories. I'm going to start where I met you in the Toastmasters club, and you were president of this White Rock club. And I really, right there, connected to you. And I thought, wow, you're such a wonderful person. There's this feel about the way you communicate, almost like this family. And I thought, let's start about that. So take me back to the early years where you're from another country. Take me back there to your childhood.
Yeah, so Tom, I was born in Georgetown, Guyana. Guyana is on the northeast coast of South America. It's the only English speaking country on the South American continent.
Awesome. So just to help you out there, everybody who's watching the future video, you can't see this on the audio podcast. There's a map there. So just walk us through whatever you want as you're telling us that.
Yeah, so Tom, there are three Guyanas. Guyana was formerly known as British Guyana. Where you see Suriname, that was Dutch Guyana. And there's French Guyana. All the Guyanas were spelled Guiana. But when British Guyana gained its independence from England, it dropped the British and it changed the I to a Y. So it's now Guyana. Often when I say Guyana, people think of Ghana in Africa. But this story really starts from my birth in Guyana. I am the third child of four children, the only daughter. And I left Guyana when I was 13 to go to boarding school in Barbados.
Yeah, so we got everybody, we're sharing on screen here. We've got a beautiful picture here. Just tell us who's in that picture. I think I know where you are.
Yes. So I'm not in this picture. This is my three wonderful children, Jay, Dean, and Tyler. And this was the first time the first weekend actually, that Sabrina, our adoptive daughter, had joined our family. We had just come back and we took them away to Harrison Hot Springs for a weekend so we could start the bonding process. And as you
Wow.
can see there, Sabrina has a big smile on her face. She was gonna settle in very quickly.
It's such a beautiful picture. Everybody, when I got this picture, I was trying to figure out how do I build it into the program, and I thought we'll put it up front because we want to connect to the heart of not just Pauline and her passion for life, but also there's a faith-based part of her story. So, Pauline, did you take this picture?
Yes, so I
Okay,
took this
so
picture.
that was the end. That was what I was hinting at. Where are you in the picture? And you answered the question perfectly. Somebody took the picture, and I realized, yeah, you're a pretty good photographer too. So here we are, and I want to go to the next slide here and I put up a quote. And then I think this is so inspiring. I want you to just read it out loud for us, and then talk about what you mean.
Yes, I love this quote. I wish I could give credit to the author. The world may not change if you adopt a child, but for that child, their world will change. And after having Sabrina in our family for 33 years, I've added my own little bit. And I've added adopting Sabrina not only changed her world, but her presence is continuing to enrich our lives.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love that. So, everybody, when you start finding a thought leader, and that's what I call you, Pauline, you're somebody who speaks with your thoughts, tells your stories, but they're unique. It's through your lens. Nobody else can. And what's remarkable is there's a lot of people, Pauline, like you, who have done things like adoption, extraordinary events that don't share their stories. And there's something to me about, I'm trying to, through this interview with you, understand really what deeply is burning in you to want to tell that story. So I'm going to go to the next slide. I think that's the one. And I just want to show you this and have you read it to us again and then talk about that.
Yeah, so this says there had never been an international adoption before Sabrina's. The process started in May of 1988, of course, in Guyana. She was born in my country, and it ended on May 10th of 1990. It took 5 lawyers, 3 judges, and 2 years. And
Yeah.
God chose us for this mission.
Yes, and that's the part I'm going to bring us back and just get that off the screen for a minute. So I'm a faith-based person, by the way, and I got to be really transparent. I've talked about this on my show, Pauline, a bit with you. We were having a conversation. I can't remember when it was, but something came up about faith. I think we were texting each other about some things in our business. And I was born and baptized a Catholic. And yet, about my childhood, I went through a very traumatic existence up to age 12. My parents split and then became pretty much homeless on my own to figure out the world. But my dad was born a Hindu in Fiji. He was a Mormon when my mom met him in Fiji. And we came here and I got baptized as a Catholic. And I had no idea. I went to all these schools and things. And because of what was going on in my home, there was a picture of Jesus on the wall. And I just gave up. I honestly got so confused and denied my faith because a big part of me was going through so much pain and disruption in my young life. I couldn't figure it out. When I had my brain injury in 2018, I fell in a bathtub. People know about my story. I'm still recovering. I had to go night stalking for 2 years at Costco, from being a chief exec running a business to stalking produce. And I lost my way, went into depression. Then my wife had a faith-based show on called Joyce Meyer's, and I started watching it in the mornings with her. And then I said, honey, can you buy me a cross? And I'll finish on this and give it back to you because I want to hear about your journey in faith. That I would just get in the car. People would say, talk to God. And I was just like, skeptical. And I would do this. I would say, God, I don't know what I'm doing, but I just want you to hold me and carry me through the night. It's hard. I'm banging my body. I don't know if I can see or what the future is, but just, and what I found is over the weeks, and I was there 2 years, I started trusting and giving all my worry and all my things that I was holding back to Jesus Christ. And it did many miracles for me. And I'll mention one later if we have a chance to compare it or put aside your miracle. But thanks for letting me share that part of my story. It got much better. Tell me about your beginning experience with faith and what do you mean by God chose us?
Yeah, so Tom, I could so relate to your story because at 13, my parents separated. The judge gave the first two children to my dad and the second two to my mom, and I was the third child. So I went with my mom, and she moved us to Barbados.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Beautiful place, by the way. And there I attended boarding school as a day scholar.
Yeah.
However, a couple of years after, she got sick and went back to Guyana, and I entered the convent where I was a day scholar. I became a boarder, and I
Oh,
spent every morning in the chapel, and that's where my faith really grew.
wow. I just want to jump in there. That is awesome. Everybody has such a teaching moment. So sometimes life's events happen, right, Pauline? And when we're younger, we don't have rational use of our prefrontal cortex, the part of the rational brain. And later in life, we discover what the meaning of that was. So there you're a boarder and there's the faith around you. Did you really know what that was going to do for you in your life at that time? Or was it only later in life that you started realizing what that was, what that experience was for?
Yeah, that's such a good question, Tom, because when you're 15 and now your parents aren't there and you're waking up to the nun's bell and then you're going off to chapel and you're starting every morning learning about God and hearing the stories and the Bible stories and the parables. And of course, you're storing all that away, but you really don't know how you're going to pull on that one day. You don't know that. You don't know when that faith is going to really serve you.
Yeah, no, that's exactly, and I've heard that from so many people. The other side of it I've realized too is a lot of people don't talk about faith. They don't really. It's a tell me what you think, but I think it's a personal relationship with God you have, and it's not religion to me. Religion causes other challenges, but a lot of people don't talk about it in business. But I was thinking about this that I know so many people from the executive coaching work I've done who tell me in private that the night before a big board meeting or before some big event that is going to be problematic or challenging for them in the business that they pray. They speak to they're in a relationship and they just speak in relationship with God. It's amazing. I want to put this back on the screen again. Let's just get that up there, everybody. We're here with Pauline Blachford, and she's telling us her remarkable story about moving from her home of Guyana to Canada, and this story of adoption of a young beautiful soul named Sabrina. I want to show this picture here. So tell everybody where's that?
So this picture was taken in Guyana. My husband and I were going down. My mom, who lived in Guyana, wanted to show my husband Jack where I was born. And while I was there, we heard that there had been a baby abandoned at the hospital. And I had these three amazing sons, but I always had this desire to have a daughter. And it riddled me with guilt because I thought would say to myself, Pauline, there are people that don't have even one child, and I am so grateful. But then there was a pastor. We were camping in the States, and there was this pastor. Tom, you'll like this. He was Pastor Tom. And I said to
Great
him,
name.
yes, it's a great name. I said, why am I so riddled with guilt over this desire to have a daughter? Is it because my mom and I were separated and I don't have a mom in my life?
Yeah.
And he said, Pauline, what if you took the energy you're spending on focusing on the guilt? And what if you redirected that energy into the fact that there may be a little girl in the world that needs you?
Wow.
And
That's a
that he just released me of my burden.
Yeah.
And he just gave me purpose.
That's incredible. I just want to see if we can screen this picture again. There's a little everybody. If you're watching the video in the future, you'll see there's a writing on the pillar there of this building. It says medical social worker. Just take us in that moment as if you're doing a story. Describe this building. I assume you've been there or whatever. You can put us in the moment. It looks like an older building somewhere.
Exactly. So this is the public hospital in Georgetown. It's no longer there.
Mm.
I returned to Guyana in February, and I was so hoping I could actually see this place. But when I heard there was a child abandoned at the hospital, of course, I was curious, and I took my husband, and we got into a taxi, and we went to the hospital, and
Yeah,
we were directed to this office
I see.
where the person said, yes, there was a little girl abandoned here 5 weeks ago. Would you like to meet her? And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is amazing. Here's an opportunity. And here was this matron saying to me, whoa, we can take you up to the maternity ward and you could meet her. So within 10 minutes, we were holding Sabrina. I was holding Sabrina.
Oh my God, you're like I'm having goosebumps here, and oh my gosh. So a little bit when what happens with our brains, everybody, is when Pauline says something. I'm gonna bring in a little neuroscience here because it's an area I really like to focus on when I'm teaching. That Pauline, if we took our brains and what happens is everything from the outside world, so what I'm hearing and seeing here, comes in through the five. I will laugh with my wife. 5 holes in her head: eyes, mouth, ears, touch, smell, and only the brain can only process about a small percentage of what you're telling me in this visual. It's too much info. So what happens is in my mind's eye, I'm going looking internally at what's stored in me, stories and things, thoughts and emotions, and I'm filling in that picture. So what came up when you said that was my first experience having my first child. We lost little Tommy. Now, it's not a negative. We lost him at term, and that was my first child. And it crossed my mind back then about adoption, but I heard so many stories about how hard it is and all the challenges. The miracle of my daughter came a year later, so the story had a happy ending. But one of the things I've found in your story is I wrote this up just to honor you. Let's read that out loud.
So my burning desire was God inspired. It was never my own. God gave me the passion, the drive, love, and commitment to keep fighting for our adopted daughter, Sabrina.
Yeah, so I'm going to go to the next slide and then show a picture of a gentleman here. Tell us who that is, and that I think somehow fits into the fighting forward, right?
Oh, for sure, Tom. So it was such a long process. Imagine the country had never done an international adoption. So lots of just people saying, no, it can't happen. It's never
Yeah.
been, it never happened. But when it was thrown out of court 2 years after it started, I was told by my lawyer, the fifth lawyer, you cannot follow the judge into his chamber. You have to accept that case is now has ended.
Hold on a sec, Pauline. Sorry to interject. The fifth lawyer? All right, that's amazing. Keep going, but tell us more about that. How did you burn through 5 lawyers?
I know we just couldn't do it. They just kept saying, no, no, we've never done this. We don't want a child leaving the country. But what happened there, Tom, on that first day that I held Sabrina when she was 5 weeks, and I looked into her brown eyes, I fell in love.
Wow.
And the fight was on, and I didn't care how many lawyers it would take with my husband and our children's support, because the children asked us at the beginning when we interviewed them, the question was, does this little girl, at that time they called her baby Passad, her last name was Passad, does this little girl have a mommy and daddy?
Wow.
And we said no. And from the time we said no, they were all in. Why aren't we bringing her home? Why is it taking so long? And so to get back to this story of Mr. Fields, when we were told after 2 years, this is out, we're not looking at this case again, the judge left. He walked out of the courtroom. I
Wow.
looked at the lawyer and I said, I have to follow him. And she said, you can't follow the judge into his chamber.
Right.
And I said, well, why not?
Oh, you can. Yeah, everybody, teaching moment here. Meet Pauline Blachford. Yes, you can follow the judge into the chamber. Keep going. I love
Yes,
it.
because I wasn't fighting for myself. I was fighting for a little girl that had no place to go. She had spent her time in a maternity ward. The orphanage that we visited said, bring her when she's 4. Well,
Wow.
she's now 2. What are we going to do with her?
Yeah.
So I followed the judge. He sat down. He turned around. He was so shocked to see me. And my heart was just pounding. Tom, this was before Toastmasters. I was a
Wow.
very shy person 33 years ago. And so I just remembered something my father in law said. He
Mm.
always said, do not hesitate to ask for help. And so I said, please, sir, can you help me? And he looked at me, I looked at him, and he took out this black book and he started to flip the pages. And I thought, oh no, I've been down here for 6 weeks. My
Yeah.
kids were young and in Vancouver with my husband. What
Yeah.
is he going to tell me to do? And all of a sudden, here's the miracle. He wrote down, Mr. Fields, I went to law school with Mr. Fields. If he can find me a loophole, I'll put this through. And it
Well,
was Mr. Fields who found a loophole, and that's how the adoption case happened. It was because of this lawyer.
oh my goodness. I brought it back on the screen, and you'll see me coming on the screen. I have another studio cam, everybody, and you see me taking copious notes here. These things are coming out as we're talking. This is remarkable. So I want to go back to the faith part of this. That sometimes when we really believe in something, and this is also what I've learned, Pauline, about my own life. When we believe in it, we change our behavior as well. We change our thoughts to positive. Like, it's remarkable to hear how many times you told us that you're going to do it. You're going to follow the judge. There's something in you that was developed, and I believe through listening to you, that was developed at a young age, resilience. Uh, you can talk about this when I give it back to you, but I see somebody here who went through challenges and some separations when they're young, and then found through an experience being put in that boarding house where their faith came in there, and then had some messaging and some, maybe they call it the word of God, reading it and learning, as teaching something that maybe the way forward is to be in service. And then you find the beautiful Sabrina, and then you keep going and you're resilient and you're resilient. It breaks my heart because so many children who come from what I call maltreatment in research of neuroscience, Pauline, is just a term that means something in our early development wasn't positive. It can be as simple as you're standing in your home and your mom and dad are always busy, and you say, "Mommy, Daddy," and they're on the way to work and they're on their phones and they don't talk, they don't look at you. The brain of a child can develop that as they don't care about me, a story. But for so many children who hear the story and so many people who can follow in your footsteps, many of them end up in despair later in life, the ones who are lost. And yet I'm so proud of you in this story. It's amazing. So we want to give a tip our hats to this lawyer here. Is he still around? He must be quite a bit older, or is he's still practicing, do you know?
Well, I tried to find him when I was in Guyana, when I went back in February. I had this burning desire to go home and touch base with the people that made this adoption
Yeah.
33 years happen.
Yeah.
And couldn't find him. But what I did do is I found the judge's grandson. The judge had passed away, but I phoned his grandson and told him the story. He hadn't heard it, but I told him that because of his grandfather,
Yeah.
that we were able to put through this first international adoption.
That's incredible. So I'm just going to go back to the storyline again. Maybe what I'll do is I'll take a right turn here. There's something you said. You said you were shy, and it was before Toastmasters. So I want to bring something up here, add it to the screen. Everybody, this is what shy looks like. And she's very humble, Pauline. But I'm going to just tell you what's on the screen here for the audio people. She was published in the Toastmaster magazine. Now, I know this took a little bit, but come on. What I like about you, Pauline, is you're humble, you have humility, and there you are. And so tell us what was this article about? It's titled "Seeing My Way from Employee to Entrepreneur."
Yeah, so this is a wonderful experience. Toastmasters is one of the best decisions I made. I was starting my own consulting business, and I was so scared. I was so comfortable being on the phone at my local optometry clinic,
Yeah.
calling 100 people a day in a back office. And so after doing that for 18 years, I decided to open my own business and to have the opportunity to have greater impact by coaching clinics across the country to really care for their patients, because optometry is important to me. I had my grandmother was blind, and I want Tom, thanks for giving me this opportunity to say how important it is for us to have annual eye health exams when we're seniors and when we're children.
Yeah.
And if we have any kind of medical code like glaucoma suspect or diabetes or high prescriptions,
Yeah.
and therefore this was an opportunity to also tell my Toastmaster family what it meant for me to join Toastmasters and to gain the courage to speak at conferences across the country in order to spread the word about the importance of regular eye health exams.
No, this is amazing. Everybody, I'm looking at another document just in my studio that Pauline sent, and I also found it on her website. By the way, we're with Pauline Blachford. Her website is paulineblachford.com, where you'll hear all about this amazing story. There's a bunch of stuff in there, but it talks about, there's some really fascinating things in there about your daughter needing point 0.6. Tell us a little bit about that part of the story. I just want to see if I can find it here. Maybe you can.
Yes. Tom, and this is my granddaughter, Jada. She's my first grandchild. And
Yeah.
because my children know the importance of children having annual eye health exams, Jada was out visiting Vancouver and saw our eye doctor when she was 11 months.
Yeah.
But then when she was 2, her dad, my eldest son, Jay, took her to see an optometrist in Milton. And at 2 years old, she was a -6. That's a really high prescription for a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm so passionate about children having eye exams from an early age. Please don't wait until they're in school to be screened by a nurse. Take them. This is a great time this summer to take your children in. It's covered on their provincial care card.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And thanks for sharing that again. I'm just going to change the slide here as we keep talking. I've been waiting and waiting to put this picture up. I should have put it up at the beginning. Pauline, describe what we're seeing here.
So to the right is Sabrina, and she was, of course, she was called Baby Passad because her mom's last name is Passad.
Yeah.
And her mom was 15 when, or actually, she had just turned 16 in the same month. And when she was urged by her mom to leave Sabrina. So during the visiting hours of the hospital at noon at the public hospital on April 23rd of 1988, her mom left during visiting hours. But this picture was the one I told you about. This is me. I'm holding her. And remember when I said that I looked into her brown eyes and I fell in love? This is the picture on the right. And then on the left, I would go down every 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
I thanked my husband and children for hanging in because the lawyer felt it would take 3 months. We never knew it would take 2 years. And so this is Sabrina. She's at 2, and here I am, a much younger version of me.
What a beautiful set of pictures. Everybody, when you said brown eyes, I mean, that's the color of my eyes. And I kind of look at that picture there, and I'll tell you, I can find a few baby pictures. This makes me a little, maybe turning a little pink. See, when I blush because of the color of my skin, I go pink. But I have a baby picture that looks a lot like that one on the right. And people would look at it, my baby picture, and say, is it a girl? I had curly hair, and but it's so beautiful. And everybody on the left side there, Pauline, you just look so happy. But the thing I notice about the Sabrina is she's smiling. And was that your experience through the adoption process? Did you have a chance to see other children, or just through your travels, come across or meet other people who have been adopted, or just what I'm trying to say is what makes this baby smile and happy versus are they all like that, even though they're sort of waiting for somebody to come and rescue them?
Wow, that's such a powerful question, because when I went into the orphanage, when I was desperate, thinking, okay, we have to have a plan B.
Yeah.
In life, if things aren't working, we have to be ready for a plan B. And as much as it would have broken our heart that we couldn't get Sabrina out of the country, I visited the orphanage to
Yeah.
say, would you take Sabrina as we continue to fight for her? And I noticed all the little girls. It was St. Anne's Orphanage in Guyana. There are about 16 children there right now. And I noticed they were so happy. I don't know what it is about children in developing worlds. They have so little, but Tom, they are so happy.
Wow.
And I think for Sabrina, what I would do every time I would go down to Guyana, I would go back into the maternity ward. They would
Yeah.
allow me to take her. And we would start this little peekaboo to see if she would remember that I was there 3, 4 months prior. So I would come around the corner and go peekaboo. And I could see she'd looked and looked. And then I'd play it. And then all of a sudden, you see the eyes would open and she'd go, I recognize this person.
That
But
is
then,
so
of course, the flip
nice.
side to that, Tom, was then I had to take her back.
Oh goodness.
She would be pulling at me as I
Yeah.
handed her over to the nurse at the
Yeah.
maternity ward. So they were tough moments.
Of course. I want to riff on that a bit because it sent me on a journey in my mind to another part of the story that I know about, just the development of a child's brain into youth and adulthood, but also mental health and things like separation, anxiety, and whatnot. So in this particular place, when after you've left, what kind of care is there for the children? Do they understand? Are they fairly sophisticated with understanding, the whole concept of mental health and physical health and raising these children? Are they doctors, or like what was there?
It was tough because, Tom, we're talking 35 years ago.
Yeah,
Brenda just turned 35. So it's interesting that we're talking about this story 35 years
that's
after the
cool. That's
process
awesome.
started. Exactly.
Happy birthday to her.
Yes. And so, of course, we didn't know. The blessing, though, and this is why I know this story
Yeah,
was God inspired, it was first my mission, my dream.
yeah,
And then, of course, once Pastor Tom planted the seed
yeah,
that, look, change your guilt into focus of finding a child in the world that needs you. Who would have thought that the child would be in my very country? And I would hear about this while we were visiting Guyana.
yeah.
And then to go into the maternity ward, the nurse that took Sabrina and put her in my arms was Nurse Jennifer Peterkin. And she took that on as her mission to help Jack and I adopt Sabrina. And so we called every Sunday night. And what Jennifer would do, Jennifer would make sure that Sabrina was getting all her shots. She would also go to my brother who lived in Guyana every Friday
Yeah.
and pick up food, milk, sometimes for the other children in the
Wow.
hospital, clothes, bigger crib, mosquito nets. So everybody played a role in this incredible story. It
Yeah.
became our story. And Jennifer Peterkin, I was so sad when I went back in Guyana in March because she's no longer with us.
Mm.
But our family is going to honor her by donating a fetal monitor, and there will be a plaque on it that says, "In loving memory of
Wow.
Nurse Jenny."
That is beautiful. Everybody, let's just remind you we're here with Pauline Blachford, who is sharing. She's an entrepreneur, she's a business owner. She has an incredible story of adoption. I'm going to read that quote out again that you talked about and you sent me. Pastor Tom changed my focus from guilt to mission. The world may not change if you adopt a child, but for that child, their world will change. And we can see here through the story what this fight for 2 3 years or however long you said that was, but it all came back to something in you. Now we talk a lot about Jack, and I haven't met Jack, but I've heard about your husband through our relationship. I admire both of you for what you've done. There was a little bit in your background about getting the two of you on the same page to go down this journey. Tell me about him. where you met, how long you've been married, and then how you both got going with this. And you certainly had the resources to do it, which is good.
Yeah, so Tom, Jack was born in London, Ontario. And when I came to Canada in September 1970, he had just been transferred by Pitney Bowes to Vancouver to be their Western manager. And Pitney Bowes was located right next to the Royal Bank at Broadway and Cambie, where I was a teller. I was 20, and that was how Jack and I first met. I was his bank teller. And he kept
Wow.
coming in for cash just about every day. And I didn't realize it was because he wanted to get in my lineup again.
I got to jump in and just smile because my first job was a bank teller. And as I might have mentioned to you personally, that my wife is a banker from Toronto Dominion Bank. Everybody, we have an international audience, but we're both in Canada here. I'm in the West Coast with Pauline. And so, yeah, we're fellow bankers, but it's funny because similar things when Anna got into management, and that's where I went. I would go to her branch on my lunch hours and I would just wait in line to to go to the counter hoping she'd come out and she'd come and talk to me. I had nothing to do there. So it's so funny. So take us back from there. You met and he was wooing you through, the teller. What happened there?
Yeah, Jack and I then dated for 3 years before we were married. And yes, and then we had these three wonderful boys. And then, as I said, that's where we started saying to Jack, I know that our family is complete as it is.
Yeah.
And we had no family in Vancouver, so no family support. But I shared with him about this desire to have a daughter, and he just decided to join this dream. And so it went from being my dream, my mission, to our dream. And then, of course, when we answered the question for the boys, did this baby have a mommy and daddy? And we said no, then they came on board. And I think, Tom, this is such a great lesson, because there were so many things I learned through this adoption. The importance of when we have a dream and it's not going away,
yes,
to realize there's just a purpose, and when it's gonna benefit another human being.
Yeah.
It's so important that we do all that we can do to get the help, because we can't make our dreams live without the help of other people. We need each other.
Yeah, I'm just also thinking in my mind here about something you said about your faith in God, and this. You and I both know. I mean, I'm approaching 28 years married to my beautiful wife Anna, who you've met. Uh, I was married once before for 7 years, but very early at 21 years, and it was amicable, but it wasn't the right place for both of us. And she was a teller too, so there's a bit of a thread here. You might think I'm a stalker for tellers, but that's where my first wife came from as well. And I guess what I'm saying is marriage isn't a straight line up. Ann and I know this. We struggled. There were opposite personalities, but we've gone through such adversity and challenges in our life that it's brought us closer, made us stronger. And faith, when we can't sometimes deal with each other in our thinking, or sometimes I'll get hurt and she'll get hurt, we're not aligned in our vision, somehow faith brings us back together. So I want to just talk about Jack for a minute. What was one of the most awesome or outrageous moments in your wedding that you can remember? And you said family's not here. Is his family, was it somewhere else? And then a bit about, through this whole journey, what role did he play in terms of getting Sabrina to here at the end of the line? Was it an emotional role? Was it a behind the scenes role for you as a husband? Was it a financial role? Just anything you want to share so we can really honor him in this.
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity, Tom, because I've shared with you that my husband has Parkinson's. And so after spending 52 years together,
wow,
it is the first time that
give you
now.
another applause there.
Yeah.
It's for you, Jack, and for you, Pauline.
Thank you. Yes, and but the most outrageous, going back to the first part of your question, the most outrageous thing that happened was I was raised Catholic, and Jack was raised Anglican. very similar,
Yeah.
which works. He was an altar boy, and it was important that we continue to raise our children
Sure.
in the church, in our faith. But what happened that was kind of fun, outrageously fun, was that we were married at UBC at the St. Anne's Church. It's shared between the Catholics and the Anglicans, or it was at that time. And therefore, our service was done by the Catholic priest and by an Anglican priest. So we had an ecumenical wedding, and many of our guests said how awesome it was to see the two ministers work together. My Catholic minister had to say he had to be the one to announce that we were married, but he joked about the fact that actually it was Jack's Anglican minister that should talk about that because he was the one that was married.
Yeah.
So it was a fun wedding. And what part did Jack play in it? Once Jack realized that my dream wasn't going away, he got on board and he supported me by, of course, we needed the funds. The adoption cost nothing. There was no adoption fee. It was the flights to go back and forth.
Right.
There was the legal fees, which my brother gifted us. My brother, who lived in Guyana, said that he wanted to do that. He's no longer with us. He played such a role in that. We could have never done the adoption without him. And so honoring my brother Regan is so important.
That's wonderful.
Today. So yes, Jack was fully on board. And every time I was in Guyana, Jack and the boys, they were a team. The four of them had to do it without me. So it was not easy because remember, Tom, we thought the lawyer told us it would take 3 months. I told Jack nothing in the developing world takes 3 months. It'll take 6. And I was wrong as well because it took 2 years.
Oh, wow. I think that's such a great, everybody, we're putting the picture back up on the screen, the beautiful pictures of Sabrina. And I think I was tracking the storyline, and she was born in 1988. I was also looking at when you became Canadian citizens and things. And it's just so amazing. But I think there's another thread in here that I've thought about, Pauline, is that you're a professional, so you're in business, and Jack was in business. And I know that when I had my children, and Anna, when I met her, had 2 young children, 9 and 12, that it is a lot of work. And then somehow, again, this goes back to everybody, the story of resilience here from what drives Pauline. You call it your burning desire, but boy, I'll tell you, just, going back and forth and then maintaining business, a relationship, the children picking up what a wonderful family you have. And I want to just see if I can get one more picture up here to show that. So tell us what's going on there.
So this was January 8th, 1993, when Sabrina became a Canadian. And we didn't need to have her join the other people that were there doing the same thing, the new immigrants, because she was a child, but we wanted her to. And so at this age, she's 5. And here are her 2 older brothers. And Jay was, it's not in this picture at this time.
Yeah.
But it was so special. And that the judge actually looked at her and said, would you like to say who you are? And so she stood up like she'd seen the other people did. And she forgot she didn't say her last name, but she said, I am Sabrina. So we thought that we had to capture this moment. And years after, on January the 8th, was when our first grandchild, Jada, was born. And I thought, well, isn't this special? January the 8th has been marked in a different way.
A story of many numbers. Tell us a little bit about Sabrina, just just some things. Draw pictures, tell us what does she do now, or any experiences, just to get to know her without obviously giving anything personal too much away.
Of course. Sabrina is, of course, we learned, I'm so glad you brought that up, because we learned through Sabrina's story years after, and I really want to give a shout out to the book that Oprah did with Dr. David Perry, What Happened to You. I'm going to grab it here.
Sure. I'm just going to write that down for the references on the show, by the way. So can you just hold that up, Dr. David Perry? What? Or no? What happened to you?
Yes.
And who's the author?
And this is by, pardon me, Bruce Perry, Dr. Bruce Perry,
Yeah.
and Oprah.
Awesome. So
And
just tell
this
tell
is a
tell us a
book.
bit. Tell
So
us a bit about it.
it's conversations on trauma, resilience, and healing. So what
Yeah.
I realized from this book was, because Sabrina never bonded with anyone until
Yeah.
she came to Canada at the age of 2, when she had her AVM, or brain bleed, at 16, and the hospital suggested we give Sabrina counseling.
Mm.
And this was when the counselor told us that Sabrina was experiencing attachment disorder. And
Uh,
I just wished I had known that at the beginning. So,
yeah.
what I would like to share with the audience, if I may, that if I could do it differently, I wished I knew the importance of getting a child counseling when they're first brought into a family, because it's tough, and I didn't understand. I didn't know anything about attachment disorder.
Yeah.
So this book really helped teach me why Sabrina was experiencing this, and still does, because it's so important to child bonds with its parent in the first 2 months. And of course, Sabrina went over 2 years before she bonded with anyone.
That's amazing. And remind me again, what year you came into her life, or how old she was?
So when I met her, she was 5 weeks. So on the right picture that you're showing now,
Yeah.
she was 5 weeks, and we adopted her on May 10th, 2 years after. So she was kind of 2 years, 3 weeks
Okay.
after. And then I want to show you what she looks like now.
Sure. Let me put the full screen on you. Just hold on. There we go. All right. Wow. What a beautiful young lady. That's an amazing picture. Oh my goodness. To go from what we saw in the, let me see if I can do something creative here. Look at that, everybody.
Is
What
it
is the, I got to take my son.
is it got a lot of shine on it, or can you tell? So Sabrina is now 35. She is strong, resilient, and determined.
Thank you for sharing that picture. It's
And
amazing.
um, yes, and there's so many things, Tom, I wanted to share too about the lessons I learned, if I may.
Yeah, please. Before you do that, can I just ask you, does she work? Does she go to school? Does she have
Yes,
passion?
yes, Sabrina works. She's in the finance field. She is a mom of a 1-year-old son, Jasper Jack
Awesome.
Blachford Miller.
Oh,
So
wow.
she included her dad's name in the middle of her son's name.
What about dad? Who's he, or just anything so we can draw a picture? Born here, born, or
Oh, of Jack.
Sabrina's, yeah, yeah.
Oh, of Sabrina's. You mean Sabrina's biological parents?
No, sorry, she's got a son, right? You said?
Yes, she has a
Yeah.
son. Dad is Steve, and they met through work. And
Nice.
yes, it's just so nice to see Sabrina really embrace motherhood.
I love it.
And I know that because of all she's gone through, that I could just see her determination to be a good mom.
Yeah.
And
Please,
it's
please go
lovely.
ahead. Thank you so much. I feel like we knowing her, we should have her on the show with you another time again if she's comfortable. But
Yes.
one of the things I would want to ask her is that, to tell me her story through her eyes when she first remembered you, and then what her burning desire is, because I bet you there's something in there about children and about uh, passion to give and serve. But give us your lessons learned. I'm fascinating hearing that.
Yes, I wanted to share 6 lessons, and forgive me, I'm gonna refer to them so I don't miss anything
Oh,
here.
no problem. I'm going to
First
write some
one
notes.
yes, thank you. So the first one is, when you have a passion or a gift, believe that it could be God inspired or whoever your greater power is. And so pursue it, because it's sticking with you for a reason. That's the first one. The second one, be aware of when you are speaking into the lives of others, because you could be the conduit to turn what seems impossible to them and make it achievable. The third, anything is possible when it's good for another human being. So really keep pursuing the good things you're doing for others, because you're very much needed in their lives. The fourth is remembering, could you please help me? That's such a powerful, powerful request. I don't believe anybody would ever say no to us asking that question. And if we can't personally help that person, I think we would be driven to find someone who could help them. My fifth one is, sometimes you need to break a rule or protocol in order to achieve something great. And I do believe that in us adopting Sabrina, she's brought so much into our lives, into my husband and my life, into her brother's life. And I know how much her brothers mean to her as well. So, but if I didn't walk into the judge's chamber, if I did, as that good Catholic, obey what I was taught, to always do what was right and don't disobey, I would never have had the judge say, if you go to Mr. Fields and he finds me a loophole, I'll put it through. And
Wow.
yes, and then the last one, we quote by Russell Nelson: no, we don't own our children. Our parental privilege is to love them, lead them, and let them go. And what I add to it is, of course, Tom, it's whether we've adopted them or we've had them. It's they're only ours for a little
Yes.
while. So
Oh,
there are my 6 lessons.
oh
Thank
my
you.
goodness, everybody. Pauline Blachford here giving us wisdom. This is another teaching moment on the show. Go back, listen, watch, listen, make these notes, reflect. Pauline, what comes from your 6 uh, lessons learned, what we have to realize is it's wisdom. It's not just you sat and wrote those, but it is from a journey from your childhood right through to the 3-year adoption battle to now. And you're bringing us all that wisdom. That is just amazing. I call you a bit of a maven there. If you want to find somebody to talk about adoption, she's the lady. There's so many things going through my head. We'd have to do a part 2 on this. I just want to share a couple things, if you don't mind, that I had coming to me throughout the show. One was about Guyana. I mentioned to you that when I was younger, there was a part of my life where I was sort of lost. I have 2 brothers, one younger, one older, but our doctor's name was Das, Dr. Das, and they were from Guyana. And so I spent more time in my life between the age of 12 and probably when I left, he got out on my own, at my doctor's home. They had a pool and pretty nice things. And he had 3 daughters. And so we had 3 boys, 3 daughters, and we just grew up. And then eventually he went through a divorce with his own wife. But I'm blessed because I learned about the culture of Guyana through that family, and such beautiful people. And you can see here, everybody, how beautiful Pauline and her family are. I saw you speak at Toastmasters. I was honored to be in the room, and you did a PowerPoint. And I saw when you get off the plane in Guyana, there's some type of a billboard talking about your family. Whoops, my camera's a little weird here. Just what was that? I can't remember. Was a billboard about your business or something to do with your family? What was that?
Yeah, so my family business is Ricks and Sari and in Guyana, and my brother continued to run it
I see.
after my dad moved to Toronto as a senior, and we manufacture spices.
Wonderful. So that business is still thriving. It's still
Yes.
fantastic. So that entrepreneurial gene really is a big part of. I think that's true for many immigrants who come from other countries. You hear their story and they started some type of business. And that's pretty cool. I'll have to get some info if we want to put in the show notes if there's a way to import or learn more about that. The I wanted to ask you about the. First of all, I want to honor and I feel for your experience with Jack now on that part of his journey, and I just pray over you and Jack. Through our faith, I'll keep him in my prayers. And again, everybody, that's a sign of resilience here. Here's Pauline, and I've learned that Jack's, living in a home there, but you're there every day, or you're going constantly. And considering everything you do, you're just amazing. I haven't seen you shed a tear, but if I was you off camera, you might want to shed a tear of joy, because I'm just so proud of you and I love you and your story. I'm sorry about your brother. Uh, what was there anything there that you can share? Was there was it a health related or anything you want to tell us?
Yes, it was quite sudden, the loss of my brother Regan, who was the power behind the adoption there locally. One thing he saw ahead of time
Yeah,
is he said, just in case we have any challenges,
yeah.
let's meet the prime minister, just in case. And
Wow.
so Hamilton Green, 35 years ago, Hamilton was 56. And
Really?
we met him. And 2 years after, as the adoption was, when we finally threw Mr. Fields and the adoption was put through, we then found out that the country had no passports.
Oh
And
my
so
goodness.
we thought, what do we do now, Regan? After 2 years, we've got this adoption put through, but now the country has no passports. And because I was traveling on my Canadian passport, they couldn't put right Sabrina into it. If I was traveling on my Guyana passport that had expired when I was a
Yeah.
teenager, of course they would have been able to add her to it. So we went off to the prime minister's home and we told him our predicament. And we sat there and visited with my brother. He disappeared. Mr. Hamilton Green disappeared, and then about an hour and a half after, there was a knock on his door, and this police officer showed up with a passport.
My goodness.
And so, another God inspired moment. And so that's what I did in March. When I went back to Guyana, I went to see Mr. Green and I told him the story. He had forgotten. He said, I
Wow.
would have done anything for your brother. And that's why I, I I just phoned the experts in that area, and that's how you got the passport. And I was able to thank him and show him pictures of Sabrina. And he's now 89, and
Wow.
he was just blown away that I would think of him to thank him. And that's the other thing, Tom. So many people touch us throughout our lives. And maybe there's somebody there that's really done something for one of the people in your audience today. And I just would like to encourage each of us to just look back and pick up the phone today and thank someone that's really touched you in some way. So Mr. Green was just so happy that he got to meet me and we got to remember my brother. My brother died. He was diabetic, had some heart issues. He never shared it with me. So I didn't realize he wasn't well. He was
Mm.
56 at
Mhm.
the time. So we lost him at a young age,
Yeah.
but I also wanted to give a shout out to my brother in Toronto, Rick, who
Eh,
has spices as well. So,
Awesome.
the country, our spice business is continuing.
Well, not only is this a hot story, it's spicy, and your whole family is spicy. I honor you, and I'm sorry for your loss with your brother. I lost my dad January 18th. Not even comparing to a heart attack, and I have uh, bad genes. They say, although I can make my genes behave different through natural ways of living. But yeah, we honor him. I read in that everybody. I read in this document that Pauline sent me that I got off your website. If you want to go everybody to paulineblatchford.com, it's on the screen. Go to the about tab, and you've got this beautiful, uh, really biography that's written with a lot of these cool points. And below, by the way, there's a couple young girls who are hugging. And it just brings back that whole thing about what you stand for. But yeah, I saw that in there about the prime minister. And part of me, like, when you hear stories and you're not familiar with Guyana, you start thinking about Canada's prime minister. And if I went there, there'd be all this pomp and circumstance, and you have to be on the elite list to get there. And the power again of who do you know? like when you live in the attitude of service like you do, you've said that. It's one of your things I want to highlight to honor you about, uh, you know, about the speaking in others' lives, and be aware of the conduit when speaking in others' lives, how you can affect their lives, but also when you get into other people's lives and stories, everyone. Pauline, I think you do it really well. I've seen that even through the work at Toastmasters, building your club membership. That what I've learned is, well, let me put it this way. I have some friends, by the way, in business, and I don't really see eye to eye, and they say things like, this person asked me for coffee. Why would I spend time with that? I'm so busy. And I always say, and now that I've read the word and I believe in my faith and God says, be in service, I always go, it's not that person, but it's what's behind the person. It's the story that you're connected by if you get to know their threads that one day will come back. I have a friend when I was stalking at night at Costco. He called me up and I'd met him long ago, Pauline, but it was a case just like you where I made time to have coffee with him. I was very busy running my business and everything. And he kept in touch when I was at Costco, and he called me and he offered me a job at another place. Well, although I got excited because he was a CEO of another big company, and he said, I think I got a job for you. Are you still at Costco? He said, I remember you and I met. I said, yeah. And I'm thinking like, oh, it's going to be management or executive. He goes, I hate to tell you, but it's a table waiter. So I waited tables at a tap house in North Vancouver, serving beer and pizza for a year. Again, everybody, because of a brain injury and vision problems. But when he and I met, this is the one thing I learned just by making 15 minutes. And I say this to honor what you've taught us, is he read my book and he said, your story is my story. And yet he was the toughest guy on the outside and so successful, CEO of the year in BC and all this. His name is Jack Nicholson, by the way, the head of Otter Co-op. He's become a friend, but he never talks about his story. And that little thread there connected us. And then he knew my story and that part. And he's faith-based. He remembered me when I was in need, when I was praying at Costco. And one night he sent me that message. And here's the other part of that story I'm going to share. It's public because he shared it. He reached out to me one night and he said, do you think you could pray for me? Because I think I've had a heart attack. And he did. And he had to leave work for a bit, got stints, and he's back and doing great. But here's part of what I'm getting at here, everybody. Pauline here is such a blessing to the world, but it's through connecting and through her belief in other people and serving. All the things I hear from you, Pauline, like in your things like pursue your passion, be aware of the conduit when speaking to others, anything's possible. Please help me. Help. You did that to save this little life. And I want you to know that everybody you touch in your life and through this legacy we've created with this production, everybody's going to find a thread in your story and you're going to release some pain. You're going to help someone. And what Jack did for me that day, the same as meeting you, he remembered my pain. He remembered who I was through that connection. And when I prayed, God, just send me some hope because I was fed up with Costco, this happened. It's just amazing to me how the universe works. So now I want to honor you as we go to wrap up. So I don't even want to take the picture of Sabrina off the screen. I'm going to just do that, though, so I have to. So I'm going to full screen me in a different way. No, let me just ask you to look behind me, and you see that screen back there, Pauline?
Yes.
It's got this, yeah. So do you know what a challenge coin is? Have you
Tell
heard
me,
of?
Tom.
So challenge coins were created in World War II, and soldiers would carry them in their pockets to basically commit community, to support each other. And if you didn't have yours at the officers club, you buy dinner or drinks. They had fun. But today it's grown. My father was in Alcoholics Anonymous 22 years before he passed. They have their own version of a coin. First responders do. Police force does. And all the societies and things, you can make these. So I had this hand painted and crafted in the United States. That's an image of it. The back of it is the hero's journey narrative that I studied through Joe Campbell. It's raised letters, hand painted and crafted. And so today we're inducting you in the Quiet Warrior Tribe. Welcome to the community. We have about 40 of these going out a year in a population of 8 billion. And honestly, Pauline, I've been doing this show for 5 years. I get people coming through booking agents now. So I'm so humbled. But not everybody wants to come on and tell their story and be vulnerable. And there's not as many people out there who have taken their pain or their tragedy or their setbacks and turned it into something to serve the world. So you're in good community. And if you go to the show, by the way, you can see all the episodes. All those people now will be connected to you by that community. At some point, I'm going to fire up some type of a mailing so that you all meet each other. So welcome aboard.
Oh, Tom, thank you so much. Thank you for giving me this honor. And I just wanted to really thank your audience for being here, for those who will listen later, and just to inspire them to tell their story, to just really look deep and pull out something you've been um, keeping a secret, hoarding that talent, that passion, and just share it. Reach out to Tom because we'd love to hear your story too. And thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. And so you're not getting away before I tell you one more thing. So at the end of the show, I always honor the guests with leadership words. I write these as you're speaking. They're not scripted. And so this one was easy because I learned from you, but this is what I truly believe since meeting you and learning your story. The first one is courage. There's no question about it. The second is passion. And we've heard that from you. The third is wisdom. Oh my goodness. They say that the difference between knowledge and time is, or knowledge and wisdom is time. It's unbelievable what you've brought. The fourth is service. And the fifth one, it's my favorite word and only give it out when it's deserved, is resilience. I mean, we'll put your picture up there and we'll put that word right on the bottom of it. So I honor you and we'll give you the last word. Anything you want to say before I go to wrapping up here?
Thank you, Tom. I want to thank you again for the opportunity. I want to thank my husband, my children, my brother, Nurse Jenny, who's no longer with us, and of course, everyone that really breathed life into this story because we need each other. We need each other to make dreams come true. Thank you so much, Tom, for what you're doing.
You're welcome, Pauline. And by the way, we're going to stay on and chat for a little bit after about vision. And also want to just surprise you. I just thought of this. I'm going to send a second award out, 2 coins. I'll meet you and take a photo, but for Sabrina. And it would be an honor if she could come when we meet and receive it and have a photo, or I'll give it to you. But that's I'm going to produce a show and make it in honor of the two of you together.
So thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. All right, everybody. What an amazing show. I always said this. I said to Pauline, right? An hour goes by when you are telling stories. We've burned an hour and a bit. You'll see this produced and released as an international podcast, a YouTube premiere video. Find that true purpose. Find that passion like you hear and see from Pauline. And everybody live the life that you deserve and desire. And see you again on the Quiet Warrior Show.
Thank you for listening to the Quiet Warrior Show. Create is a motive-based leadership development firm. www.kreat.ca